Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm actually going to be doing something that I don't do very often, and I'm going to be dedicating this entire video to one single book. And that book is Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck. And most of the time when I do videos on one book, it's because I really love that book. That is not the case with this one. I absolutely hated this book, and I hated it so much that I genuinely feel like I need to warn people about this book, because I wish I could have messaged everyone behind me in the library line to tell them not to waste their time, because this was just so bad. And I don't say that lightly, like I really don't. This was just, I feel like I need to talk about it because I feel like people need to know if they're thinking about reading this book. So firstly, I feel like I should address how I came to read this book. I saw my library get this and scrolled right past it because it doesn't look like a romance, doesn't look like anything I would normally pick up. To me, this looked like a general fiction, sort of witchy, fall book. And I was like, cool, like if that's your thing, that's your thing. That's not really my thing. So I scrolled past it, and for whatever reason, a couple weeks later, I ended up seeing the synopsis for this somewhere, and it describes it as a rom-com. And it compares it to The Ex-Hex by Aaron Sterling and Payback's a Witch by, I think it's Lana Harper, or Lara? I think it's Lana Harper. And I loved The Ex-Hex. I thought it was really cute. And I haven't read Payback's a Witch, but I have heard really great things about it. So I was like, okay, maybe this is going to be something I'm going to like, It's a rom-com, it's compared to books that I've heard good things about or that I enjoyed, and so maybe I will check this out. And I ended up getting it from my library. I got the audiobook, and I was super excited because I love like a good fall spooky season romance. Like that is right up my alley. And so I started reading this one, obviously, and was having some issues with this book. I want to say this book was written as a joke. I really do. But I don't know that it was. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. This book follows a girl who, I believe she's 28 in this book. And she's living in this town where she's surrounded by witches, but she doesn't know it. Because in this town, when you're 18, you take this like witch test, and if they determine that you don't have enough magic or your magic's not powerful enough, you basically get two options. You either get your memory wiped so that you don't remember anything magical or that there are witches around and you can stay living in the town, or you get exiled. So you go live somewhere else, but you still know that they're witches. And this girl basically finds out that she was part of the memory wipe option. And she is in this friend group that I even hesitate to call a friend group because they just didn't seem to even really like each other. So I found it hard to believe that they were like hanging out for these 10 years that she didn't know she was a witch or that any of them were witches, and getting along, because they couldn't seem to get along for like 5 minutes over the span of this book. So that was weird to me right off the bat. I just thought the vibes were kind of strange within them. And like I said, this is described as a rom-com. There was nothing funny in this book at all. And there wasn't even anything that I think was trying to be funny, so I don't know where that label came from. Like, it's not like they were trying to be funny and I just didn't think it was funny. There was just genuinely nothing in this book to me that seemed like they were even trying to make it funny. And so I didn't really get where that label came from. I rated this book 1 star. I think that's important to note. I actually was starting with 2 stars, but ended up getting so angry while I was writing my review, thinking about this book, that I lowered it to 1 while I was writing the review for it. And the thing with this book is the main character. Her name is Emerson, and she is the most, like, annoying, narcissistic, arrogant main character to ever grace the earth. Like, she was so irritating that I can't even imagine being in a room with her if she was a real person. And her arrogance was like, I don't know what they were going for. Like, I really don't. I think they were trying to do the whole, like, girl boss, don't need no man, like, feminist sort of thing, but it just like really was not working. She was so cocky in everything that she did. She had literally found out that like she had powers, and that's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. She found that out, and like literally 1 day later she was ignoring everything her friends were warning her about and everything, and just thinking like, no, I know better than them. when she had literally known about witches for one day, and all of these friends had known about witches their entire lives. And she was just ignoring everything they said, doing all kinds of stupid stuff on her own because she was like, oh, I'm the best at everything, like, of course I can do this. I think the part that really killed this book was the feminism. And don't, like, get me wrong here. I am, like, pro-feminist. I'm pro-feminist in the books. I love it all. Like, it's great. This book was just something else in that regard. Like, if I don't even know how to express how awful they made feminists seem in this book. Like, there's a scene very early on, like, I want to guess in the first 3 pages of this book, where something happens and she's like, oh, that's because of the patriarchy. And I was like, when I read that part in, like, that early in the book, I was like, okay, they're just trying to establish that she is very, you know, pro-woman, like, hear me roar sort of thing, like, whatever. And I was like, okay, like, we now know that she's like that. We can move on. But we never moved on. Anytime a man even talked to this girl, she was like, oh, you're saying that because of, you know, society's constructs and the patriarchy and blah, 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 and I know better because I'm a woman. And it was just, like, so annoying and overdone and not relevant 98% of the time that it was brought up. Like, it didn't matter. It didn't need to be stated. And it got to the point where, like, they were literally shoving it down your throats. Like, to me, that became the main point of the book, was, like, it wasn't about witches, it wasn't a romance, it was about the patriarchy. And I put in my Goodreads review, I would have loved to have the ebook of this, because I would have loved to search how many times the word patriarchy was used in this book, because I'm sure it's a very high number. If you have the ebook of this, if you want to comment the number below, like, please do, because I would be very interested in finding that out. But I couldn't get past that. It ruined the entire book for me because I just couldn't like her. Like, she was so irritating. She thought she was better than everyone the whole time. And this book sort of falls into that category where, you know, there's, like, the one person that can save us all sort of thing, and it's this one girl that's, like, literally the dumbest person on the planet and so annoying. But she's like, oh, of course I'd be, like, the chosen one. Like, I was born for this. When she has no clue what she's doing. Like, it was so, so stupid. And she was so arrogant and cocky and just like, oh yeah. Like, there was actually a line in this where I think, like, one of the guys is, like, trying to teach her, like, a very basic spell. And she's like, oh, I was a quick study because of course I was. And I was like, who even talks like that? Like, I mean, there's, like, self-confidence and then there's literally just arrogance. And this girl fell into the later category. And like I said, I think it was trying to, like, channel the whole girl boss, like, I don't need no man thing, which is great. But, like, it didn't come across that way. It came across as she thought she was better than absolutely everyone. She immediately thought she was better than all men because she was a woman and, like, whatever. And that was, like, super, super annoying. She dismissed anything a man ever said to her because they just couldn't possibly know what they were talking about. And it was so irritating. Like, I just keep saying that, but, like, it literally was. That's why I felt like I needed to film this video, is I just need to, like, let this all out. Because, like, I hated this book so much, it's not even funny. I can't even tell you what happened with the witchy plot, because I don't know, because I was so angry about all the other stuff that was going on. On top of that, the fact that this was in the rom-com category should suggest that it is a romance book. It's really not. The romance was so boring, it was barely even, like, worth mentioning in this book, to be honest. She is sort of seeing this guy who, when she finds out that about the witches and about all the powers, she kind of gets this feeling that maybe they dated before and she just doesn't remember because of the memory wiping. And so she's like, were we together? Were we not together? Like, I don't really know. And he is kind of telling her things, but, like, not really. And I mean, he was okay. There was nothing about him that I'd be like, oh yes, he's so great, like, I hope they get together. And really what happened was I just felt sorry for him ending up with her because she was, like, so anti-men and just, like, she treated her friends like crap the entire time. Like, she was so rude to them and just, like, didn't listen to anything they said. It was always about her. And I just can't imagine these people actually being friends with her, because I can't imagine this girl ever having friends, period. Because she was just so full of herself and so, like, narcissistic and just, like, didn't care about anyone else ever. And so the romance just seemed almost like it was there, but it was definitely not the focal point, and it definitely wasn't interesting. And on top of that, this is the part that makes me so, so angry. There is a quote in this book that made me so mad that I actually spent 40 minutes going through the audiobook afterwards trying to find it, because I felt like I needed to include it in this video and in my review, because I feel like it really just paints the picture of how awful this book was. And so, like I said, they're trying to market this as a romance. It's not a romance. But on top of that, like, know your audience. And these authors do not know their audience, like, at all. Because we get an almost sex scene. And you know what? Like, I'm not someone who cares if that's in a book or not. If you want to have closed door, by all means, go for it. I have no preference. I don't care what you do. And I think there are ways to write closed door that you don't feel like you're missing anything. And I, like I said, am totally cool with that. If that's what floats your boat, then, like, so be it. I literally don't care. But in this book, we get one chapter in this whole book that I would actually say could pass as, like, a romance book. And this one chapter is them finally discussing, you know, like, did they get together? Are they getting together now? Like, what is happening, sort of thing. They're finally discussing, like, are we going to get together? Are we interested in each other? Like, is this happening? And they have this, you know, long, deep conversation, and then they start making out. And we get all this, like, build-up to them hooking up. And, like, you know it's coming because they almost did once before, but they didn't quite get there. And so you're like, okay, this time they're gonna go all the way, you know? And you get there, you get all the detail leading up to them hooking up. And then this is a direct quote from this book. It says, "And I could tell you more. I could share every detail. I almost want to. But you know who I am by now. I'm not here for the objectification of women or men or the glorification of sensuality for consumer commodification." Like, seriously? Read the room here. Like, if you're selling a book as a romance book and you are targeting romance readers, you're then gonna come at them with this whole, like, holier than thou, like, I'm better than all of you because I don't have a sex scene in my book? Like, seriously? Oh my god, it makes me so angry thinking about that quote. Like, literally, like I said, that's what made me change my rating from 2 to 1 stars, was I just cannot believe that they had the balls to put that in this book. Like, I really can't. Because, like I said, like, know your audience. Like, that is not, romance readers are not the people you want to be like, oh yeah, like, we're not here for that because, you know, that's horrible. Like, why would you ever want to read that sort of thing? And I cannot believe that that stayed in the book. And this is traditionally published. So, like, I can only imagine the number of people that, like, proofread this and went, oh yeah, that's fine. Like, who wants this book? Because I feel like nobody asked for this, and nobody wants this. And that is why I feel like I need to talk about this. It's just, like, this is not for romance readers. Like, it is not 100%. I can't think of one person that reads romance that would not have been offended by that quote at all. Because, like, I have no words anymore. Like, I can't understand what would possess someone to think, I'm gonna write a book in a romance genre and then mock the romance genre, basically. You know, and that's not me saying that the romance genre is all sex, because obviously it's not. Like, I just said, tons of stuff with closed door, I don't care. But I think to actually say, like, oh, I'm superior because of that, I could not. And the funny thing is, I was listening to this audiobook, I actually remember where I was standing when that quote came on, because I remember thinking, oh no, they did not just do that. But they did do that. And, like, like I said, I can't believe how many people must have read this book and been like, yes, this should be published. Like, people will want this. The way this book reads to me is that they wrote it, like, this is how I imagined it in my head, is that they wrote this book with no romance in it, and took it to the publisher, and the publisher said, okay, if you add some romance in there, we may be able to, like, sell some more. You know, like, we'll get higher sales if there's some romance, because people love that, you know? And then the authors were like, oh, okay, we'll put some romance in there. So they squeezed this, like, super not interesting relationship into the book. And then the publishers were like, you know what we could sell even more was if we labeled this a rom-com. And the authors were like, well, we don't really want to write a rom-com. And they were like, well, too bad, that's what we want. And so I almost feel like the authors were, like, forced to write this book as a romance and didn't want to, and that's why it's so terrible in that aspect, because I can't possibly think of another reason why this book would exist. Like, it's just, I can't believe that quote. Like, I really can't. And I read another review by someone on Goodreads, and they had, like, some good points, because they were, like, saying, actually, these are a couple different reviews that I read. There was one that was saying, like, this should have been, like, the moment of them finally getting together, that should have been, like, the most heart-eyed, swoony, you know, fall in love, like, oh, I'm so happy for them moment. And instead they literally were throwing all this feminist stuff back at you again. Like, who needs that at that point in the book? Like, why was that necessary? And I just, like, I cannot believe they did that. Like I said, that quote could have been removed from the book, and I probably would have been slightly less angry about the whole thing. But like I said, I feel like they really didn't know the audience. So to me, I can't figure that out, because I think they're two authors that wrote this, and I think they're both romance authors. So I'd be curious what their other books are like. I will never read them, but I'm curious what their other books are like, and if all their characters are like this, or if they just got together and were like, yes, this is great, this is groundbreaking, this is what the new modern age people want, and that is just not the case. I think even the most feminist would hate this book because of the way it's written. It is so unnecessary and in your face, and like I said, I'm like pro-feminism. Like, obviously, like, equal rights and all that is great, but like, this was not that. This was almost, like, I would say, anti-men. Like, it wasn't even just like women are equal to men, it was we hate men. I think part of what baffles me the most with this book is the fact that it was written by two women, because I'm like, not only did one person sit down and think, this is great, like, I'm gonna add in all these feminist things, two people sat down and thought that, and I cannot believe that they have found each other, because good for them, because I cannot imagine more than one person out there wanting to write this book. But I don't know. I really can't with this book. I just wanted to post this because I feel like I said, this has a long wait list at my library, and if I could have personally messaged everyone behind me in line to tell them not to read this, I would have, but I couldn't. So I wanted to make this video so people can look it up, or if you've read the book and you're angry too, that's probably why you're watching this video, which is kind of funny. So hey, I wanted to film this, like I said, just because I think I would have wanted to hear all this before I picked this book up, because I would not have bothered. And I just think if you're looking for a romance, this is not it. There are plenty of other witchy romances that you can pick up that will be 10,000 times better than this. One in particular I really love is Go Hex Yourself by Jessica Clare. The X-Hex, obviously, also really good. Heard good things about Payback's a Witch. Those are all some good ones. This one is not going to be a good one. I have not seen any good reviews for this. I did go through I went through all the Goodreads reviews for this, actually, and almost all of the ones that were 5 stars were either people that were sent ARCs or other authors, and so I think that's very telling, is that no one who bought this on their own or like read this of their own decision actually gave this 5 stars. So I think that's very telling. The Goodreads rating is currently 3.55. I could see that actually dropping in the future, but I just wanted to put this out there if you were thinking about reading this one. These are probably things you're going to want to know. And so yeah, that is everything for today's video. I'm glad to like finally get this all off my chest, because I've just been so angry after I finished this book. And so anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I will see you next time.